I'd like to welcome today on Mommyhood to Hollywood one of the newest and most fabulous Real Housewives of New Jersey, Kathy Wakile. Thanks so much, Kathy, for
Hi,
being on the show today. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Michelle. I'm
Oh,
doing
thanks for
great.
being
How are you
here.
doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy that you're with us today on Mommyhood to Hollywood.
Oh,
So,
thank you so much. Yeah.
okay, so Kathy, how did you end up doing the show The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and how does your family feel about it?
Well, I was approached initially by Bravo, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't even take it that serious. I thought it was like a joke. And I thought it was a friend playing a practical joke because I never really thought that I would do something, a reality show or anything like
Uh-huh.
this. And I never petitioned to try and get, on the show or anything like that. So I kind of just ignored my, the initial shout out or the initial, email that I received. And then it kept popping up. And so I called back just to see what the deal was. Or I actually sent an email back to the person that contacted me and told them that they could give me a call if they were serious about this. And at the time, they were saying that they cast for several different types of television shows, and different networks.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea it was for the Real Housewives. And
Wow.
then when they finally did, after it was after a while, we talked and this and that. Then they did tell me it was for the Housewives. And then at that point, I talked to my husband about it, and he just said, well, let's, agree to an interview. We don't know where it's going to take us. Let's see. That's not something that we're interested in. But, it's always interesting to see what they have to say and what the process is like. And so we were very, apprehensive and very skeptical that they were even going to choose me. Until they came to my house, I think that's when I finally told my kids, and that had been, I don't know, 2 or 3 months after the initial phone call. And then I told my kids, and they were like, what? Are you serious? They couldn't believe it. And, again, we just took it like as a fun, adventure, and we didn't really put much thought into actually being selected. We just wanted to see what it was all about, and so that's what happened. But when it came down to it, and they were really serious, this went over, the course of several months. We had many, many talks with our kids, and we would present every worst case scenario, the pros, the cons, everything, because first and foremost, our children were the most important part of this whole process and how their lives would be affected and if they would be able to handle it. And I have to be very, very honest. My children were, every question that we proposed to them, they came back with an answer that made us totally confident that they could handle it, and an answer that I hadn't even thought of. And it reassured me that they would be just fine with the whole process. And then, of course, once I got my kids on board, and there was something that they encouraged me to do. I still hadn't, made a decision. I presented it to my mom and my sister and my siblings, and I told them to think about it because obviously they would be affected on some level, and I wanted to get their input and their advice, and, ultimately it would be my decision and my husband's decision, but I needed to find out how my siblings would feel and how my mother would feel.
Now, Kathy, you seem to have a very structured lifestyle with your family and your kids. So how has doing the show changed your life so far now, both in the good and the bad? Because I'm sure, it's come in and added probably a different dynamic to your life.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. The way I really look at it in my head is since I've been home for 17 years, if I had gotten a job, just a regular job, it would change my family dynamic and the scheduling in my system and my routine. So my family would have to get used to that. So just getting a job outside the house is a big change in itself. So I would have to say that would have to be the biggest change. We have a different routine that we have to all adapt to. My husband has to adapt to not seeing me home all the time and calling me and me being available, and me having to think about, okay, what is everybody, it was just a normal routine. This is my routine. I get dinner. I plan everything out, everything ahead of time. Now I think I have to plan everything out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And not being so readily available for my children and my husband has been the biggest change. But in itself, that's a good learning lesson for my children at the same time, because as they are getting older, it doesn't serve them to have mommy doing everything for them.
Yes.
And so if I want to raise responsible children, I have to put some responsibility on them and teach them to do for themselves, because if I'm there all the time, it's my role to do things for them. It's my natural instinct and my desire to be there and do everything for them. But it doesn't serve them for me to be there and doing everything. So I remove myself out of the house a little bit, and it forces them to take on certain responsibilities that are necessary for them to make the right decisions and for them to grow up a bit.